Lena Marlowe sat across from Vincent Cross, the newly appointed general manager of the Sterling Grand Hotel. Her fingers drummed lightly on the polished surface of the conference table. The room was cold, far colder than the usual warmth of the hotel's luxury lounge. Vincent's suit was sharp, a well-cut display of corporate power that didn't match the personality he exuded. His mechanical sympathy seemed rehearsed, almost like he'd done this before. "You've been a valuable part of the team for 25 years, Lena," Vincent started, his voice smooth, void of emotion. "But as part of the hotel's modernization overhaul, we're eliminating your position." Lena's breath caught for a moment, but she didn't flinch. She'd seen this coming, or at least she'd suspected it. She'd been around long enough to recognize the signs when management started shifting. Still, hearing the words from Vincent's mouth felt like a slap. "I've helped build this brand," Lena said, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of something darker, something that whispered betrayal. "I know what the hotel needs. I've shaped the guest services." "I understand," Vincent interrupted, his tone never changing. "But we're moving in a different direction now. We're focusing more on streamlining operations, improving efficiency. Personal guest care isn't as crucial as it once was." The words landed like stones. Lena's mind raced back through the decades, the moments she'd spent personally tracking anniversaries for high-profile guests, the way she had perfected every aspect of their stay at Sterling Grand. It had been her personal touch that set the hotel apart from the competition. And now, all of that was being brushed aside. She leaned back in her chair, folding her hands in front of her. "So, what's next?" she asked, her voice tinged with both disbelief and a sort of grim acceptance. Vincent slid an envelope across the table to her. "This is your severance package. It includes standard benefits and assistance for your transition. And," he paused, like he was delivering something with a hint of care, "we've arranged for security to escort you as you clear out your office. Company policy." Lena's jaw tightened at the last bit. She had been the one who helped put those policies in place all those years ago. Now they were being used to escort her out of a place she had practically built. Without a word, she took the envelope. She opened it, pulling out the document and giving it a cursory glance. The numbers were acceptable, even generous. She would be fine. But it didn't change the sting. It didn't change the feeling of being tossed aside. The silence between them stretched, thick and awkward, until her phone buzzed with a new message. Lena glanced down at it. The sender was Helena Price, the CEO of Lux Voyage Travel, one of their biggest corporate partners. She read the message quickly. "Lena, I just heard the news. This is insane. Let's talk. Call me as soon as you can. You've been a critical part of our success. This changes everything." Lena's heart sank, and for the first time, her calm exterior cracked just slightly. She hadn't expected this, at least not so soon. Helena had always been one of her most loyal clients, but now, with Lena gone, things would shift, and not just for her. Her eyes met Vincent's, and for a brief moment she saw something flash in his, a flicker of realization. Maybe it was the weight of the decision he had just made, or maybe it was the sudden understanding that not everyone would be happy with the change. But it was too late for any of that now. Lena stood up, sliding the envelope into her bag. "I'll be in my office," she said, her voice now clipped, not bothering to wait for his response. She walked out of the conference room, feeling the weight of her departure settle in, even as she clung to the professional facade she had perfected over the years. As she passed the security desk on her way to the elevator, she knew things would never be the same, and she couldn't help but wonder if she could still salvage what was left of her career, or if it was time to rebuild everything from scratch. The elevator doors slid shut. The floor beneath her feet felt colder than it had ever felt before. Lena sat at her kitchen table later that evening, the dim glow from her laptop casting long shadows across the room. She had scrolled through job boards for hours, her mind numb, clicking from one opportunity to the next, each more uninspiring than the last. Nothing felt right. The phone vibrated beside her, but she didn't reach for it immediately. Her fingers were still locked around the mouse, hovering over the list of luxury hotels looking for senior guest relations managers. Nothing stood out. Nothing felt like her. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she glanced at the screen. It was Helena's name. Lena had expected Helena to reach out after she had heard the news. They had worked together for nearly 15 years, and Lena had always been the one to personally manage Lux Voyage's exclusive travel arrangements. But this felt different, more personal. Lena hesitated for a second, then picked up the phone. "Helena," she said, her voice steady but tired. I didn't expect to hear from you this soon. I heard the news, Helena's voice came through clear but with an edge of frustration. And I cannot believe it. This is crazy, Lena. You've been the backbone of Sterling Grand's guest services for years, and now they just toss you out like you're nothing? They don't get it. They never did. Lena leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. It's all part of their modernization push. I guess. They've decided personal guest care is no longer a priority. She let out a breath, the absurdity of it all catching up with her. The very thing she had poured her soul into for 25 years, now being treated like a relic of a bygone era. Helena paused for a beat. Listen, I don't care about their new direction. You are the direction. You've been the face of that hotel's luxury service, Lena. I don't know what they're thinking. If you want, I'll help you find something new. I mean it. I know everyone in this industry. You don't have to start from scratch. Lena looked at the screen, but she wasn't really seeing it. Her eyes lingered on the cursor as it blinked, waiting for her to make a move. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about what I'm supposed to do now. They've erased me, Helena. All those years. All those connections. Gone. Her voice faltered for just a moment before she steadied herself. You built the reputation of that hotel, Lena, Helena said, her voice dropping into a more serious tone. You were the heart of it. That place wouldn't have had the same success without you. No one is going to forget that. Lena sighed, closing the laptop. She didn't want to hear the hollow praise, even though it was true. Her work had been a lifeline for the hotel's reputation, and now it felt like it had all been erased in an instant. It doesn't matter now. They've made their choice. Then let's make yours, Lena. You've been loyal to them for so long, but I'm telling you, you don't need them. I have 3 hotel groups right now, ready to offer you something better. They know your worth. You're more than just a senior manager. They would kill to have you. Lena's mind raced, images of her work at Sterling Grand flashing through her mind. The feel of the guest thank you notes in her hands, the personal thank yous she'd collected over the years from loyal customers, the handwritten letters from the hotel founder himself. I don't want to be some hired gun for a new corporate machine, Helena. That's not me. Helena's response was quick and insistent. Then define it for yourself. Create the position that works for you. You've earned that right. You're not just some figurehead, Lena. You are the heart of what luxury service means. You can lead it. You just need to stop looking back and start focusing on your future. Lena stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights below. It felt as though the world was moving on without her. But then, the thought of creating something new, of leading again, sparked something in her chest. Maybe, Lena whispered, more to herself than to Helena. Maybe you're right? Helena chuckled softly. I know I am. So, let's talk. I'll set up a meeting for you tomorrow with Clara Voss. She's the head of a luxury chain, Bellevue Hospitality. I think you'd be a perfect fit for their new vision. And they'll give you the creative freedom you want. I'll have her reach out to you by noon. Lena hesitated. She had always been the one making the decisions for others, guiding the Sterling Grand's guest services with careful hands. Now, it was time to think about herself. What do I want? She asked herself silently, the question echoing through her mind as she stared at the skyline. I'll think about it, she said quietly, feeling the weight of the decision starting to settle over her. But I'm not promising anything just yet. Helena's voice softened. Take your time. You've earned that, Lena. But don't wait too long. Lena ended the call, staring at the phone screen for a long moment before putting it down. She stood still, feeling the silence in her apartment, and wondered if this was the moment she could finally step into her own future. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from one of the many corporate partners she'd worked with over the years. We're sorry to hear about your departure, Lena. Let us know if you need anything moving forward. Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. The world had already begun to move on from her. Maybe it was time for her to do the same. She grabbed her coat from the chair and walked toward the door, leaving her apartment with a sense of resolve settling in her chest. It wasn't just about finding a new job. It was about reclaiming who she was. Lena Marlowe wasn't just a hotel employee. She was the person who could make luxury feel personal, the person who could change the game. And as she walked out into the night, she realized the only person standing in her way was herself. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop holding back. 3 days had passed since Lena's termination. The time since the meeting had been a blur, replacing the uncertainty with a familiar sense of numbness she had learned to carry in her years at Sterling Grand. She had been trying to piece together what came next, but it was hard to move forward when everything she had built had been so unceremoniously wiped away. That afternoon, as she sat in the quiet of her apartment with a cup of lukewarm coffee in her hand, her phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Martin Sterling. Her heart skipped. Martin Sterling, the founder of the Sterling Grand, the man who had built the hotel from the ground up, the man who had once walked through the hotel with such pride in his eyes, always so careful to ensure his vision for service and guest care remained at the core of their operations. It had been his idea for the hotel to be as much about personal experience as luxury. Lena quickly swiped to answer. Martin, she said, trying to keep the surprise out of her voice. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. You wouldn't. Martin's voice was a mix of disbelief and frustration. Because I didn't know anything about this. Lena sat up straighter, her fingers gripping the edge of the coffee cup. I don't understand. Didn't Vincent speak to you? Vincent's a puppet, Martin spat. And I'm sure you're well aware of it. They didn't bother to consult me about your termination. I didn't approve it, not for a second. Lena's mind raced. The last she had heard, the board's decision to hire Vincent Cross had been one of the key moves in their modernization plans. And as far as she knew, Martin had been playing a lesser role in the hotel's operations ever since the investors came on board. But hearing his words now, it didn't sound like he had fully accepted it. Martin continued, his tone growing more agitated. I can't believe they just tossed you aside, Lena. You've been nothing but loyal. You built this hotel's reputation from the ground up. You were the one who made it what it is. Lena blinked, trying to keep the emotion from creeping into her voice. I was only doing my job, Martin. I did what needed to be done. I didn't expect a medal, but I also didn't expect to be treated like this. I don't care about Vincent's reasons. Martin's voice was sharp, almost pleading now. I want to fix this. I want you to come back. Lena's grip on the coffee cup tightened, her pulse quickening. The words she had longed to hear from Martin were finally here, but they didn't sound like she expected. She had spent so many years working for him, doing what she thought was the best for Sterling Grand, and now it felt like too little, too late. She took a breath before answering. I appreciate your offer, Martin, but I can't just go back to how things were. I know how the board operates now. I know the direction they're taking the hotel in, and it doesn't align with what I believe in anymore. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Martin spoke again. His voice was softer this time. I understand that. I know what Vincent's doing, and I'm not happy about it. But I can't just stand by and let him ruin everything we've built, Lena. I need you. The hotel needs you. Lena's thoughts drifted back to the countless memories she had of the hotel's early days, the way Martin had always valued personal service over numbers, how they'd made each guest feel like the most important person in the room, the most important in the world. Back then, it wasn't about maximizing margins, it was about creating experiences. She had poured her heart into that. She had put everything she had into Sterling Grand, and now, it didn't feel like it mattered anymore. Martin's voice broke through her thoughts again. I know things have changed, and maybe they shouldn't have. But what I'm offering, Lena, is an opportunity to make it right. We can reinstate you with a new title, Chief Guest Experience Officer, full authority. You'll have the creative control you need to restore everything we've lost. Lena let his words settle, weighing them carefully. She had built the hotel's guest experience from the ground up, but Martin's call now felt more like an attempt to salvage his own position. The investors were pushing Vincent into power, and Martin's offer felt like he was trying to hold on to what little control he had left. I'm not sure, Martin, Lena said quietly, more to herself than to him. I don't want to be just a tool to protect your position. I've spent so many years fighting for a vision I believed in, but I don't think it's the same anymore. The Sterling Grand I worked for isn't the same anymore. I know, Martin admitted softly, but I'm willing to fight for it, and I need you by my side. If we want to stop Vincent from tearing everything down, we need to put everything back together. Together. Lena closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the pull, the temptation to return, to try and fix what was broken. But she knew, deep down, it wasn't going to be that simple. The hotel had changed. She had changed. And whatever was left of her connection to it, it was fading fast. She took a deep breath before responding. I can't go back to being a part of a system that doesn't value what I stand for, Martin. I've been loyal to this place for 25 years, but loyalty doesn't mean blind obedience. I've given everything to Sterling Grand, and now it's time for me to figure out where I go from here. I can't keep fighting for something that's no longer in my hands. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Martin spoke, his voice low. I understand. I'm sorry, Lena. I never meant for you to feel this way. Lena exhaled slowly, letting the tension in her chest ease. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Martin, but I need to move forward. And so do you. With that, she hung up the phone, the quiet buzzing of the line ringing in her ears. She stared out the window, her reflection faintly visible in the glass. The lights of the city stretched out before her, endless and full of possibility. Lena didn't know what was next for her, but she finally felt something she hadn't in days: hope. It was time to build something new, on her own terms. And no one, not Vincent, not Martin, not anyone, was going to take that away from her. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, her phone buzzing nonstop beside her. It felt like an invasion, but she couldn't ignore the urgency of the messages flooding in. There was one from Helena Price, of course, but there were also texts from former clients, colleagues, and even some travel agents. I just heard, Lena. This is ridiculous. Let's talk. Lena, this is insane. You've built the entire service culture at Sterling Grand. I can't believe they let you go. If there's any way I can help, just let me know. The next company that gets you will be lucky to have you. The messages came fast, one after another, the words ringing out with something she hadn't realized she needed: validation. She wasn't just the woman who had been let go, tossed aside by Vincent Cross and his cold corporate agenda. She was valued. She was wanted. Her finger hovered over the screen, unsure of how to respond, unsure of what she even wanted to say. The familiar ache of betrayal still lingered in her chest, but beneath it, something new began to stir. A realization that maybe, just maybe, her worth wasn't tied to that hotel. The phone buzzed again, this time a call from Clara Voss. Clara was one of the top hospitality headhunters in the industry, and her name alone was enough to make Lena sit up straighter. She picked up the phone before the second ring. Clara, Lena greeted, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the knot of anxiety in her stomach. I didn't expect you to call so soon. Lena, I couldn't wait to get in touch. I heard what happened. I am shocked. Clara's voice was warm and empathetic, but there was also an edge of business savvy in her tone. I want you to know that I've already got offers from 3 major luxury hotel groups lined up for you. These are top-tier opportunities, Lena. And I'm not just saying that because I want to fill a position. I'm saying it because you deserve to be leading these teams. Lena's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't even begun to process the idea of jumping into another role. The offer sounded too good to be true. I'm not sure if I'm ready to just jump back in, Lena said, her voice betraying a trace of hesitation she hadn't expected. I spent years building something at Sterling Grand, and right now I feel lost. I need time to think about what I want, not just what's available. Clara paused, sensing Lena's uncertainty. Listen, Lena, she said, her tone softening. I get it. This isn't just about another job. It's about what comes next for you. But I want to make sure you don't just walk away from an industry that needs you, that values you. Trust me, these roles, they'll give you the kind of autonomy and creative freedom that will let you redefine your career. You don't have to be boxed in anymore. Lena leaned back, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her coffee mug. Clara's words resonated with her, but they also made her feel something else: exposed. The idea of jumping into something new, without the familiar structure of Sterling Grand, felt like a leap she wasn't sure she was ready to take. But what other choice did she have? Do you know who's hiring? Lena asked, her voice quieter now, but a little more focused. Clara chuckled. I'm glad you're interested. Let's start with Bellevue Hospitality. They've been looking for someone who can bring a personal touch back into the luxury hotel scene. They've grown quickly over the last few years, and they know they need someone with your expertise to keep their guest relations top-notch. Lena's mind raced. Bellevue Hospitality. She had heard of them, but she hadn't taken them seriously. They were smaller, more boutique. Could she really see herself there? A new, untested company, with the same promises that Sterling Grand had made all those years ago. Or had she grown beyond that? What about the other two? Lena asked, her voice steadier now. She had made up her mind. She wouldn't jump into anything without seeing all her options first. Clara launched into details about the other 2 offers, one from a sprawling 5-star hotel chain based in Europe, and the other from a growing luxury brand that was starting to branch into the U.S. markets. Both had strong reputations, and both offered attractive compensation packages. Lena listened, absorbing the information, but it was clear in her mind now, the choices before her weren't just about money. It was about control. The idea of leading a team again, of setting a standard for personal service and guest care that actually meant something, not just looking like luxury, Finally, Clara wrapped up the call. I'll send you the details about each offer, and we can go from there. Take some time, Lena, but don't wait too long. This kind of opportunity doesn't come around every day. As the call ended, Lena sat still for a long moment, her phone screen dimming in her hand. It wasn't just the offers that had shaken her, it was the sheer weight of being wanted again. For so long, she had clung to the idea that Sterling Grand was the only place for her, that without it, she would be nothing. Now, the world seemed to open up in a way she hadn't expected. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Helena. Just heard from Clara. I'm backing her up 100%. If you need anything, you know where to find me. Let's talk soon. Lena put the phone down and stood, walking to the window, her gaze drifting over the city lights once more. The decisions in front of her were massive, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel paralyzed by them. She felt empowered. The ball was in her court. This was her chance to take control, to lead once more. Not as someone else's second choice, but as Lena Marlowe, the one who had shaped an entire hotel's reputation, the one who had built something that mattered. She didn't need Sterling Grand. She had everything she needed to build something new, something all her own. And as she looked out at the city, she felt the shift inside her, a quiet confidence blooming. It's time to start over. The next morning, Lena sat at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The silence of her apartment was heavy, almost suffocating. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness, and she glanced at the screen. The caller ID read, Martin Sterling. Lena let out a slow breath, her finger hovering over the answer button. She had known this moment would come. Martin had been trying to reach her since their last conversation. He was probably going to beg her to come back, to help him fight Vincent and the changes he was making at Sterling Grand. She had heard his frustration on the phone, but she also knew that Martin's motivations weren't purely about her or the hotel's well-being. It was about his control, about keeping the legacy of Sterling Grand intact. And that was a game Lena was no longer interested in playing. She answered the call, her voice steady. Martin. I'm sorry, Lena, he said immediately, his tone surprisingly calm. I should have done more. I should have fought for you. Lena's grip on her coffee cup tightened, the words landing with a familiar bitterness. He should have fought for her, but he hadn't, and it wasn't the first time she had felt this way. Still, she wasn't in the mood for a rehashing of past mistakes. It's too late for that, Martin, she said quietly, setting the cup down with a soft clink. I've already made my decision. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She could almost hear Martin weighing his options, deciding if he was going to fight for her again or if he would give in and accept her departure. You know I didn't approve of Vincent's decision, Lena, he said finally. I've been working with the board, trying to reinstate you, offer you a new title. Chief Guest Experience Officer, more responsibility, more power. We could make it work. Please, just give me a chance to fix this. Lena closed her eyes, her fingers resting on the edge of the table. She had built so much with him, had given him her loyalty for years. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that Martin's offer was just another attempt to hold on to the past. He was offering her a position under Vincent's shadow, a chance to rebuild something that had already been corrupted. I can't, Lena replied, her voice stronger this time. I won't return to a place where I'm not valued for what I bring to the table. Not by Vincent, not by the board, and not by you, Martin. She felt the words slip out before she could stop them, the truth cutting deeper than she had expected. Martin was silent for a moment. She could hear the disappointment in his breath. I understand, Lena, but what are you going to do now? Lena hesitated, her mind flashing through the offers Clara had outlined the day before. The world outside Sterling Grand was unfamiliar, but it felt like it held the promise of something new, something she could truly shape with her own hands. I'm not sure, Lena said slowly, her voice quieter now, almost reflective. But I'm not going to let this define me anymore. I've spent too many years giving everything to a place that doesn't even understand what it lost. I see, Martin said, his voice low and tired. Then I guess this is it, isn't it? You're really done? Lena closed her eyes, letting out a long, slow breath. Yes, Martin, I'm done. The silence on the other end of the line stretched between them, thick and final. Then Martin spoke again, his voice tinged with regret. I can't say I blame you. I never meant for things to end like this, but I understand why you have to go. Lena's chest tightened. It felt like she was severing a part of herself, but it wasn't out of anger. It was the release of something that had held her back for too long. I need to move forward, Martin, and I hope you do too. She didn't wait for his response. She ended the call before he could say anything more, feeling a strange sense of closure wash over her. She stood up, pacing the room for a few moments as the weight of the conversation sank in. She wasn't tied to Sterling Grand anymore. She wasn't tied to Martin's vision of what she should be. The phone buzzed again, another message from Helena. Lena, I know this isn't easy, but I'm proud of you. You deserve so much more than that place. Let's meet tomorrow. I have some exciting news for you. Lena smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe this was the fresh start she had been looking for, a chance to take control of her career and her life again. She stepped toward the window, looking out over the city. It was still early, but already the streets below were beginning to fill with the bustle of morning activity. The world was moving forward, and so was she. Lena didn't know what the future held yet, but for the first time in weeks, she felt the stirrings of excitement. The next chapter was waiting. It was time for her to step into it. The phone buzzed again. It had been a quiet few days since Lena made the decision to step away from Sterling Grand, but the messages kept coming. They were mostly from Helena, offering encouragement and advice, along with some potential opportunities from various hospitality groups. But today, the message was different. This one was from her old client, a prominent executive from one of the largest luxury travel agencies. Lena, word has gotten out. Over 20 corporate clients have signed a letter demanding Vincent's removal from Sterling Grand. The situation is reaching crisis levels. What you did, it's already having an impact. We all know you were the one who built those relationships. Keep me posted. We're behind you. Lena couldn't help the smile that tugged at the corner of her lips as she read the message again. It had been a week since her exit, and already there was a wave of support building. Her phone buzzed again, this time with an incoming call from Clara Voss. Lena answered the call quickly. Clara, what's going on? You heard the news? Clara's voice was full of excitement. It's all over the industry. Vincent's position is in jeopardy. The investors are panicking. They've had to call an emergency board meeting because clients are pulling back in droves. The whole thing is unraveling. Lena leaned back in her chair, the weight of the situation starting to settle in. She had known the impact of her departure would be felt, but seeing the shift this quickly was both surprising and reassuring. I didn't think it would happen this fast, she said, her mind already racing. You're in a position of power, Lena. The industry knows your worth, and the clients are loyal to you, not to Vincent and his corporate agenda. You've built relationships over the years that they can't just replace, Clara said, her voice firm with conviction. There's a domino effect happening. Your exit from Sterling Grand? It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Lena sat quietly for a moment, letting Clara's words sink in. The idea of being at the center of a power shift in the hospitality world was both thrilling and a little overwhelming. What does that mean for me exactly? She asked, her voice calm but curious. Well, it means you're holding all the cards, Clara replied. The investors are desperate to fix this mess, and they're starting to realize they need someone like you. They're going to come to you, Lena, and they're going to offer you whatever you want. Lena's heart raced as she processed the information. The idea of returning to the hotel world on her terms, of having the leverage to choose the role she wanted, no longer just a cog in a corporate machine, but a leader who could define what luxury guest services meant, it was intoxicating. But she needed to be sure. She couldn't be swayed just by the power of the moment. I'm not sure I want to go back to that world, though, Lena said, her voice quiet. It's all become about profits, not about people. I've spent too long fighting for a cause that wasn't truly valued. Clara's voice softened, but the urgency in it remained. I understand that, Lena. I know the last few years have been frustrating for you. But you're the one who gets to define the future now. You don't have to go back to Sterling Grand if it doesn't feel right. But there's a new option for you, Bellevue Hospitality. They've made it clear they want someone with your experience, your vision, and they're offering you a leadership role that allows you to reshape the culture from the ground up. No compromises. Lena paused. The idea of starting fresh, of being part of a company that valued the same things she did, was more appealing than she had initially thought. Bellevue Hospitality, it had the kind of ethos that she could get behind. A smaller but rapidly growing company, one that focused on personal service and luxury without the cold, profit-driven mentality that had tainted Sterling Grand. Bellevue, she mused, almost to herself. They're starting to branch out into new markets, right? They want someone to help them maintain their guest experience standards as they grow. Yes, Clara said, her voice eager. That's exactly why they've been circling you. They need someone who can lead their guest relations division and ensure it remains personal and exclusive. Even as they expand, it's a perfect fit. Lena could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, but this time it felt lighter. She wasn't being swept along by someone else's vision. She was deciding what she wanted, what would be right for her career, for her future. Okay, Lena said, feeling a new sense of resolve building inside her. Let's set up the meeting. I want to hear what they have to offer. Great, Clara said, the relief in her voice palpable. I'll arrange everything. Expect a call from their head of HR within the next day or two. You're going to love what they have in mind. Lena ended the call, sitting back in her chair, allowing the quiet to settle around her. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: anticipation. This was her opportunity to create something that truly reflected her values, to build a legacy of service that wasn't driven by corporate greed. For the first time in years, Lena felt like she was in control, and it was exhilarating. She reached for her phone again, quickly scrolling through a few more messages. Helena had sent a follow-up text. Lena, I'm telling you, this is your chance. Take it. We all know you're the future of luxury service. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Lena smiled to herself. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her who she was anymore. It was time to make her mark on the industry, and this time, it would be on her own terms. As the day drew to a close, she stepped out onto her balcony, looking out over the city. The lights twinkled below her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. The past was behind her. The future was wide open. She was ready to take that first step forward, towards something new, something meaningful, and she would do it her way. Lena's heart pounded as she walked into the emergency all-staff meeting at Sterling Grand. It had only been a few days since she had walked out of that same building, but it felt like a lifetime ago. She had received the call from Martin Sterling himself, an invitation to come back, to hear what he had to offer. But as she walked past the polished marble floors of the lobby, the weight of everything that had happened in the last week came crashing down on her. The hotel was in chaos. Clients were pulling away. Rumors of mass defections spread like wildfire, and investors were growing restless. It was the perfect storm that had sent the management team into a frenzy. Vincent Cross was in damage control mode, doing his best to keep the board from firing him, but Lena knew this was only the beginning of the unraveling. She entered the boardroom and immediately saw the tension in the air. Martin sat at the head of the table, his face drawn and weary, his once confident posture now hunched. The board members were scattered around the room, some with their heads down, others glancing nervously at one another. Vincent Cross was at the far end, his arms crossed, his face a mask of indifference, though Lena could see the panic behind his eyes. Lena, Martin said, his voice hoarse but trying to sound reassuring. Thank you for coming. Lena nodded, her gaze scanning the room before landing on Vincent. I'm here to listen, she said quietly, her tone steady. I'm not here to be part of the circus, Martin. You wanted to talk, so talk. Martin cleared his throat, glancing around at the others before speaking. This hotel, this place, is falling apart. We've lost major clients, the investors are breathing down our necks, and Vincent's decisions have alienated everyone, from employees to guests. I didn't approve of Lena's departure, but I didn't have the power to stop it. Lena could feel Vincent's gaze on her, the tension thick enough to cut through. But he remained silent, his jaw clenched tightly. Martin continued, his voice growing more strained. But I've had enough. I'm making a proposal to the board. Lena raised an eyebrow. A proposal? She exchanged a look with the board members, who appeared tense and uncertain. I'm going to ask the board to reinstate you as Chief Guest Experience Officer, Martin said, his eyes meeting Lena's with a quiet plea. You were the heart of this hotel, Lena. I need you back. We need you back. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Lena's mind raced, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions swirling inside her. This wasn't just a job offer. It was Martin's last-ditch effort to hold on to control. And despite everything, a part of her wanted to say yes. She had built the culture at Sterling Grand. She had worked for years to cultivate those relationships. But then, as if on cue, the door to the boardroom opened with a sharp creak. A reporter from Hospitality Weekly stepped inside, her notepad ready. The tension in the room escalated immediately, and Martin's eyes widened in alarm. What's going on? The reporter asked, her voice sharp. I'm here to cover the Sterling Grand's current crisis. And it looks like this is the meeting where the decision will be made about Vincent Cross. Am I right? Lena felt the ground shift beneath her. The press had caught wind of the situation. They weren't just concerned about the hotel, they were covering the collapse of an icon in the industry. She had known this moment would come, but she hadn't expected it to happen in front of her, in front of Vincent. Vincent's face twisted in frustration, but he said nothing. Martin, too, was clearly rattled, and the room descended into a chaos of whispers and murmurs. I, Martin began, but before he could say anything more, the reporter spoke up again. I've just spoken to multiple corporate accounts, and they've confirmed they are pulling their business. It looks like Sterling Grand could be facing some serious losses unless you make drastic changes. Is this why you've called this emergency meeting? Are you finally going to address the leadership crisis? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Lena stood there, her back straight, her mind working faster than her heart could keep up. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everything she had built, everything she had fought for, everything that had been ripped from her. Martin shot her a glance, as if pleading for her to step in, to help salvage something. But Lena didn't move. She had been silenced long enough by the politics of the hotel. It was time for her to take back control. The words spilled out before she could stop them. You want to fix this? Then you're going to have to make some hard decisions, Martin. And you need to start by removing Vincent. He's the reason everything has gone downhill. This hotel has always been about relationships, about service. It's not a numbers game. The board members shifted uneasily in their chairs, glancing at each other. The silence deepened, as if everyone were waiting for Martin to make the next move. But it was Vincent who spoke first. His voice, though controlled, had a tremor of anger. You can't be serious, he said, standing up abruptly. You think you can just walk in here and— I am serious, Lena interrupted, her voice unwavering. You've had your chance, Vincent. You've made your decisions, and they've cost this hotel more than anyone could have imagined. You've alienated clients, pushed employees to their breaking point. This is beyond saving. Vincent's face turned a shade of red, his eyes darting to Martin, then to the rest of the board. You can't just throw me out like this. You're making a huge mistake. Lena turned toward the board members, her gaze meeting theirs one by one. This hotel is built on trust. It's built on relationships. And right now, the only trust left is with the clients who have stood by this place. If you want to keep them, you need to make a change, and it starts with removing Vincent. The room was silent again, the weight of her words settling on everyone. Lena could feel the eyes of the board members on her, the pressure mounting as they weighed their options. Finally, Martin cleared his throat. Lena's right, he said, his voice firm for the first time. I've been blind to the damage that's been done. Vincent, I'm afraid your time here is up. The room seemed to collectively exhale, as if the tension had been broken. Vincent's face twisted in shock and outrage, but he didn't protest further. The board members murmured among themselves, nodding in agreement. The reporter, sensing the shift in power, quickly took notes, her pen moving furiously across the page. Lena could feel the weight of the decision pressing on her, but she didn't feel the same dread she had before. This was a victory, not just for her, but for everything she had worked for. She wasn't just watching it all fall apart. She was helping shape what came next. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice cutting through the murmur of the room. It's about time we put the heart back into this hotel. As she turned and walked out of the room, she felt the weight of the moment. She had just taken control, and nothing, not even Vincent Cross, was going to take that away from her again. The press was waiting, the future was waiting, and Lena was finally ready to step into it. 6 months had passed since the dramatic boardroom showdown, and Sterling Grand was a very different place. What had once been a sinking ship was now buoyed by a renewed sense of purpose, thanks in large part to Lena's leadership. The hotel's focus had shifted back to guest experience, personal service, and building long-lasting relationships rather than chasing short-term profits. It was a return to the foundation that Lena had always believed in, the one that had made Sterling Grand the revered name it once was. Lena stood in the newly renovated lobby, watching the steady stream of guests checking in with a quiet satisfaction. She had overseen the changes personally, carefully curating every detail, from the decor to the guest interactions. But now, there was a sense of stability that had been absent for far too long. The guests seemed to sense it too, the familiar warmth of the hotel returning, offering a sanctuary in the heart of the city. The phone in her pocket buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Helena Price. I hear it's all going well at Sterling. Clients are raving about the changes. Proud of you. We're ready to move forward with our partnership. Let's set up a meeting soon to talk about the next steps. Lena smiled at the message, a wave of pride washing over her. Lux Voyage, one of her most loyal partners, was already seeing the fruits of her labor. They had seen firsthand the shift in the hotel's culture, and it seemed the industry was finally recognizing it too. She tucked her phone back into her pocket and turned to the hotel's general manager, a woman she had personally recruited and mentored in the last few months, Maya Richardson. Maya had been with the hotel since the shakeup, rising to the occasion and bringing her own leadership style to the mix. Together, they had made Sterling Grand a place where employees felt valued and guests were once again the priority. Everything looks great, Maya. How's the staff holding up? Lena asked, her eyes scanning the lobby, watching as employees moved with purpose and confidence. Maya smiled. They're excited. The team has bought into the new vision. They're proud of the changes we've made. It's not just about the guests anymore, it's about creating a workplace culture where everyone feels valued. We're running smoothly. Lena nodded, a small grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. Good. I'm glad to hear that. It's important that the staff feels just as cared for as the guests. They're the heart of this place after all. Absolutely, Maya agreed. And speaking of the guests, we've had some glowing reviews. Word of mouth is spreading, especially since you've come on board. People are starting to recognize the old Sterling Grand again. Lena's eyes softened as she looked around the lobby, her heart swelling with a sense of accomplishment. It was hard to believe that just 6 months ago, she had walked out of these doors, uncertain of what the future held. And now, here she was, not just leading the hotel, but reshaping its very foundation. We've come a long way, Lena said quietly, almost to herself. Maya caught the shift in Lena's tone and gave her a knowing smile. You've done more than just fix the hotel, Lena. You've restored its soul. Lena's gaze lingered on the guests, smiling and chatting as they checked in, the energy in the air palpable. She could feel the pulse of the hotel again, the vibrancy that had been missing for so long. It wasn't just about luxury, it was about care. It was about the relationships she had fought so hard to protect. As the day wore on, Lena received a call from Clara Voss, the headhunter who had played a crucial role in opening new doors for her. Lena, I just wanted to check in, Clara said, her voice as upbeat as always. I'm hearing nothing but praise for you, and things at Bellevue are still moving forward, if you're interested. Lena's mind drifted to the offer Clara had made all those months ago. The opportunity to join Bellevue Hospitality had been tempting, but in the end, she had found something far more meaningful at Sterling Grand. She had already carved out the space she needed to make a real impact. There was still work to be done, but Lena had found her home, right here. I appreciate it, Clara, Lena said, her voice warm. But for now, I'm exactly where I need to be. Sterling Grand is my focus, and I'm finally seeing the results of all that hard work. Clara laughed softly. I'm glad to hear that, Lena. I knew you'd get there, but if you ever change your mind... Lena smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. I'll keep that in mind, but I think for now, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. After the call ended, Lena took a deep breath and looked out at the hotel's stunning view. The skyline stretched before her, the city alive with possibility. She had fought to get to this point, fought for the hotel, fought for the relationships she had built, and fought for her own sense of purpose. And now she was ready to build the future. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Lena felt a sense of contentment. She had redefined her career, and in the process, she had reminded the world and herself what hospitality really meant. She wasn't just the woman who had shaped a hotel's reputation, she was Lena Marlowe, and she was back in control. The future was hers to define,